If you spend much time online, especially on YouTube, you're going to hear all about Doe Factories. Doe Factories, my heavens, they are to be avoided at all costs. They are the bane of our existence. They are the worst things you can possibly imagine for hunting and habitat improvement. If you've got a Doe Factory, you might as well just sell that property right now because there's nothing you can do. We're all hosed. The world's going to end. All right, what actually is a Doe Factory? Well, I'm going to cut straight to the punchline here. The overwhelming majority of all the whitetail habitat out there is a dang Doe Factory. A Doe Factory simply means that a mature buck does not have one or more mature bucks do not have their core area directly on your property. Okay. Now, it is advantageous if you can have bucks bed on your property. Okay. The biggest key, quite frankly, is bedding. If there is primo, absolutely awesomely safe bedding, you know what? You're probably going to have Mr. Big bedding on that ground because Mr. Big takes what he wants. Okay, unless you do something to drive him from that property. That's actually where there is a little bit of reality to the whole Doe Factory BS. The reality is bucks place so much higher of a premium on personal safety than does, fawns, and young bucks. Yes, bedding for them, the does, fawns, and young bucks, they want to feel safe, but they also really want to be close to the food and they want to be lazy. In those situations, they are going to literally bed as close to the food as they feel safe. The overwhelming majority of the time, that is their strong tendency unless they're bumped back by too many deer. Okay, other deer, obviously there's dominant structure within the doe community, just like there is the bucks. The dominant groups are going to take where they want, and that can push the other groups further back. So, where we as managers tend to get ourselves in trouble is we want to go out there and we want to make our property the very best it possibly can be. So we improve every inch of that ground. You do not want to make doe drawing improvements around those buck bedding areas. That buck bedding area, that is his man cave. This is where he wants to be left the heck alone. He is willing to travel way further than does, fawns, and young bucks are between their primary food and their bedding 100% so he can feel safe in that bedding area. If he feels safe there, he is going to be drawn to that like the most powerful magnet draws metal. When you make those improvements around those prime buck bedding spots, what ends up happening is you draw does and fawns to those areas for the food. Mr. Big doesn't want does and fawns and young bucks running around his bedroom while he's trying to stay safe and sleep. So if he has a better alternative, one without that incredible pressure, he's going to shift over there. Improving every inch of your property is what, if you had the buck bedding to begin with, is what ends up driving those mature bucks out, that along with hunting every inch of your property and actually kicking them out ourselves. So the way you avoid it is if you have prime buck bedding, you don't make doe drawing improvements. You don't go ahead and create a bunch of browse. You don't do a bunch of logging to go ahead and thicken it up. And that when you got that point that he's bedding, you can see it all the way down here, you go ahead and log that point. Now all of a sudden he can't see as well. Now all of a sudden there's all sorts of browse. Now all of a sudden those does and fawns and young bucks are crashing his bedroom. Same when you put food plots there. Same when you try to plant mass trees, all that stuff. Stay away from the buck bedding areas when it comes to creating doe drawing improvements. That said, the overwhelming majority of properties out there do not have primo mature buck bedding areas. That's okay. We can do a couple things to take advantage of this. One, perhaps we can make our property a transition zone. If the mature bucks are bedding here and their primary food source is here, and we're sitting in between, guess what? We can go ahead and create a nice little pinch point there. We'll create a travel way through our property with a nice browse edge. Whitetails are creatures of the edge. If you've got great cover here and a little bit more open woods here, you're gonna have deer traveling that edge like crazy naturally, as long as it makes some type of topographic and pressure sense. Okay, so maybe you can go ahead and create that property as a transition zone and create a funnel in the middle of that pinches them through. And not only are you going to create all that browse, you will go ahead and slap licking branch after licking branch after licking branch along that edge. And then right before you get off your property, maybe you put that staging plot there. That's a great way to create a transition zone property. The other way is create a buck trap with the does and food. You can go ahead and put in some more than one little staging plot. You can set up the doe bedding through logging, through hinge cutting, through planting spruce, through planting native grasses, through planting miscanthus, all sorts of ways. You can go ahead and create the doe bedding where you want it to, and you can lay it out so that when Mr. Big comes through to check those does, that, oh, he goes right past this very low impact, high odds pinch point stand that all of that was centered around when it came to the creation.
Final thoughts, brought to you by Huntworth.
For all the doom and gloom and scare tactics there are out there about doe factories, it is not the end of the world. It is the overwhelming majority of all the whitetail ground out there. If you have mature buck bedding on your property, don't mess it up. Do not go ahead and make doe and young buck drawing improvements around those bedding areas. Instead, figure out, is my property better off as a transition zone? If so, I'm going to go ahead and create a browse line and a beautiful travel way right through that property, and I'm going to lead them right through a pinch that I've got stands on both sides that I can get to, hunt, and get out safely. If that's not an option, I'm going to go ahead and try to create a buck trap with the does by laying out the bedding in a way, adding a bunch of food. Specifically, when I'm adding food, I'm going to try to add food that they don't have offered in the area that they really want bad. The more things I can go ahead and stack up to draw those bucks to that spot, you know what? That's how you take advantage of a doe factory.